I see with writing is by keeping that emotional contact, the connection that you have through music.
So you do have a feeling of the lyrics.
Oh yes.
So when you mix the sound, it doesn't matter when I was in the studio, it's just a fusion that I don't know which way is which. So how do you sort it out to make it into wonderful sounds?
Well, there's during the recording session, there's a certain type of gears that you have on. It's like the recording gears. And then you go home and look at the session and kind of assess and process things, and then you have to hold it still. So,
But you have to work with Brent in order to produce the right hand sound. I heard so the first version is so much of the truth that is something which is very loud. The last version, everything sort of regulated and harmonious. Something about
Engineering.
What is the
what are the recording years?
oh, it's like there's a different way to listen when you're in a recording session than when you're at home trying to do the processing and mixing. It's just like, so I kind of know how it should sound during the session. I don't worry about if the truck is a 2000, I know we're going to deal with that later.
We take it very seriously because the confidence that everyone say and do every kind of thing, but after they go through you, it's beautiful sounds. It really makes a big, huge difference between what I heard in the studio and what's the product. So thank you very much for doing that.
I'm always like hearing the song when I'm like walking around or hiking, I think of it. And it was really, from a couple conversations we had, we took basically a piano composition and expanded it into this large group. That's the great thing about music, is that you can, take something from one individual and expand it to have the same meaning. So I think it was.
But what inspired you to write those words? I already tell people that the reason why you do it, because you meditate, but tell us a little more, because it's truly inspiring for you, from many people who just heard the first time.
Yes, I think I have to really try to getting singers the right people, because they really, their faces show their understanding of the words, or at least their feeling of it. I really appreciate that. So you saw the smiles and the sincerity on the faces of the singers. It's really impressive to me.
I was going to say, I have, after this many years in the music industry, I have a very large number of professional musicians and singers from which to choose, and I really handpicked everyone, every seat that you see filled in the orchestra. To think what would be the best way to express this part of the sonic architecture, if you will. How would I, what's the best person that can fulfill this function? And as singers, of course, a very important part because they are conveying the lyrics.
Yeah, in my worldview is this becomes inspirational. Then David can hold and meaning the writer, the composer, the conductor, the sound engineer, everyone has to get involved in certain degree to bring out that inspiration. It's not technical. It's something is the soul of yours that will give into the process. Is that right?
Well, yes, I consider music part art, part math, and part science. So there's a connection of the emotional and the spiritual, the visceral feeling that we get inside, and then you have to couple that with all of the technical elements, especially for this genius right here, who's deciding the angles of the microphones and how exactly they will be placed on every instrument to get the ideal sound, and to think about the idea.
About the size of the orchestra here, so we know the size, how many people
22 instrumentalists, and we had 5 woodwinds. For those of you who know a little bit about the symphony orchestra, 5 woodwind players, 5 brass players, and then the rest were the string players and the percussion and piano that rounded out everything. And I also made use of some highly unusual and not very often used woodwind instruments, because I thought this helps differentiate. We want this to be special. This helps differentiate the sound. So this orchestra has, a familiar sound, like you would expect from an orchestra, but there are also those elements that give it a personal and unique touch that will just apply to this particular song, this particular arrangement for this beautiful composition.
By the way, Brent was, I think, 3 percussionists. He's guitar with 3. Yes.
I was doing the same thing, yeah. I think I know how to use a microphone.
Just Brent was 3 people in the orchestra because he played 3 percussion instruments. He's a great musician as an instrumentalist as well.
That's why when we see the percussion parts, we just are showing the hands, because you don't need to see my, you only saw my face as the conductor, you don't need to see my face 4 times. It's magical.
You should have wanted to close speech.
Yeah, we did those after the orchestra did their main job, then we added the individual percussion parts one by one through a process called overdubbing, where we layer the tracks on at that time. Yeah.
I was going to answer your question about how Okay, so for some reason, at some time in my practice, just as you maybe know, when you sing, and 10,000 Bahadra. So when I came to the city 10,000 Buddhists, and as a monk, I renounced music. And you can imagine, I love music, but the only music I did as a monk was Buddhist music. And so, when I first came to 10,000, my first job, before I was a monk, was to write out the songs of how many were choose to write these Buddhist songs. She was a kind of also wrote music. And she couldn't read music, but she wanted to publish the songs, or we wanted to publish the songs, and so I wrote out the songs for that. And so that kind of gave me a feeling, oh, maybe I can use my talent, and I started writing songs. I sang the song for you last year, do you remember? Yeah. And I used to, and I actually, if you were there, I wrote a song to Shifu to ask him to be home. This song. Yeah. So anyway, when I encountered these verses from the Avatamsaka Sutra, I thought that this was a hymn. I read the first lines. Faith is the source of the way. And I thought, you can sing this. And I think I kept the first 2, maybe the first 1.5 lines. And I wanted to make the rest of those verses have rhyme and meter so that it all be fun to sing. It has, it's not a lyric. It's called versification. What I did is I got out my own great Giles dictionary, and I retranslated it to make it have meter and rhyme. So I think if you like to sing it, that's the reason why. And as I did that, the music just came. I've had times when I struggled writing music, and there's other times when it just used to come. So I kind of feel like the music in this case was a gift. I have to admit, however, that my Lutheran background played a big part in this the church and you would have a kind of a feel for listening.
I want to give you, both of you, maybe to the audience, some background on our relationship. He became a nun ordained in 1979, fully ordained. When was he fully disordained? I don't know. He was fully ordained in 1979. I fully ordained in 1982, so 3 years after him. And then in 1984, when I had my master's degree with commencement, so he proposed to sing this song. So that's when I first heard the song. And I was, the university asked us, we sing this song. So all of us nuns, we had to learn how to sing the song in 3 days. 3 days. So he got on the piano and played, and that's where everything began. So we learned how to sing in 3 days, but it stuck to my mind that it is a beautiful song. And that's 1981. So 20 years later, 20 years, is that 20? No, 40 years later, 42 years later. So we now realize I'm back here again, and I thought this is a wonderful song. I'd like to really, and I studied the sutra that specialized on this very song. So the song is the gist of the sutra I studied. That's why I love it. And that's why we are so connected in a way, because he probably loves to write music, and I love to sing his music.
Can I tell how this project got started?
Okay.
It's just I'll try to be brief. When I was here and I sang that song for you, Reverend Fischer, Reverend Price, as soon as I finished, Reverend Charlie started singing the Father Tom Song for Human. As soon as I finished my little song, he started singing the Father Tom Song Hymn of Faith. And I was really surprised. And then I joined and we sang the first verse together, remember? And then we started, I would say, fantasizing. It would be nice to have a big production of this, with an orchestra and a choir. And we were just kind of talking about this. And this thing, we communicate quite a bit, on the phones. I live in Seattle. We kept talking about it, thinking about it, and talking about it. And it just kind of came about. It was the thing. I was going to do this all by myself. I was going to learn how to orchestrate. I know something about I can read score and all that kind of stuff. And Hamsham said, no, it's going to take much time. Maybe next lifetime. So then,
I was very grateful that Matt introduced you to us. Without Matt, we don't have anything.
Yep.
Matt, the right person for this whole project.
Yeah, that's the first one I thought of that definitely helped with this. Just the amount of musicians and organizing things and basically really lining this up for these sorts of projects. That all worked out. I mean, just we met at the temple and had conversations and ended up putting this all together. It's pretty amazing. So yeah, you have to answer everything. Thank you very much.
I think every time I'm watching this, we haven't released it to anywhere, any place, and it is the first time that we show you here. But after this, today we will release it to YouTube. Yeah, we will send YouTube, and of course we will send to you and Clarice and everyone. But we keep it wrapped until today, this morning, because we respect only hope of both of you. But we try to make it in karaoke, but quite not successful because the music is so grand. It doesn't fit into the karaoke, you can't just sing along like that. So we were thinking about different versions, but what we feel, what I feel, and many of us feel is this sense of gratitude. Because we want to really help the teaching that is universal. We want verse had a name of bodhisattvas, but the rest of it, all the verse doesn't emphasize that much. So we thought that would be something that a good gift and something that people listen, they would love the song, they would like to learn about their mind, about faith. That probably the effect that we're looking for. I don't know, how would you feel? How would you feel about our approach and our thinking?
You're thinking in regards to choosing to go with the orchestra and the choir.
I think he's talking about music. The idea of using this hymn as a way to, what we say, propagate to expand spiritual life.
To carry the truth, to carry the beauty of Buddhism, but not in Buddhism kind of label. My thought is to use this as a way to unfold somehow the goodness, the beauty of the teaching, but without labels. Just using music.
Yeah.
So,
And I think that's because of the way music reaches the soul and reaches into the heart. If you have that connection, it helps you to, again, helps you to focus on the teachings at that point. And I really feel that the orchestral setting, how you first had your vision of this orchestral setting, is a timeless setting. Music that you hear today, music that you hear 10 years ago, or will hear 10 years from now, it will always have a date on it, because it was made during that era, and it corresponds maybe to something that happened during that era. So what we are dealing with here is something that is timeless, and that's what you get from orchestral instruments and from choral singing, is you get a timeless element. It's my hope that people will watch this on YouTube, or whatever the successor is to YouTube 50 years from now, and they'll see what you did, and it will still have that message, because the writings are timeless, and the written words are timeless, and so is the music.
as the opportunity, it's just one very grateful. We just have to really nail it.
Yeah, sorry. What was the question?
This is quick what I really want to say. I feel so touched about what he just said about the timelessness of this piece.
Yeah, it's definitely the way that it falls in music, like modern synthesizers and pop music approaches. The danger is it's going to assign that to this era. And always be kind of, so that's the reason. The timelessness of it is like you've been listening to this sort of music for, I don't know, 1,000 years or so. So, and it'll continue to, of course. So it's just a wise choice for the instrumentation.
These orchestral instruments were around long before electric guitar or synthesizer, and they will still be around long after people have gotten tired of the sound of the electric guitar and moved on to something else, the next big fad, the next trend. But the orchestral instruments will still be here, and they'll still be relevant, and so will the teachings.
During the time you converting, I watched, but I didn't see it clearly until I said to the people who were editing the video, and I can see you really into it, really stressful, but then at the very end, you go,
So they cut this
it seems to me like you're really into the emotion of this kind of music. I don't know if that would be true to any piece of music you're conducting, but it's really, I can see that it's not like you're artificially doing it, but something that I feel your heart into that. So it's not the sort of at the beginning we're talking about, but I feel how deep that the music and you
genre. And I talked to these choir members afterwards. Many of them, they really said how they really felt inspired by the music and the words that maybe they didn't understand how I know that they had that feeling. And then they talked about their own, how my son meditates, or they kind of talked about their own language.
But I think that what I try to get at is how this timeless thing is really get into you. At least I see that. I see the other guys, they're really into it. They're so wonderful.
When you think about that, you have to remember when you're conducting an orchestra, I have all the written music in front of me that I created based on Paul's song. And there are about 20 lines of parts that I have to keep track of. This line corresponds to the trumpet player, this line corresponds to the viola player, this line corresponds to the pianist. I have to be keeping track of that. And I think I could make an analogy that it's kind of like maybe those performers that you see in very difficult, like a gymnast, where they're spinning around and they have to be on one toe only while the other leg is out in the air, and they have their arm in this direction, and you have to just do all of that and concentrate. But then after they do all those flips and turns and they're done and they land on their feet at the end, then you can let out that big smile and what a relief.
You can watch the video at the very last minute. You can look at your face while you can have a it's wonderful.
And I heard a very different thing from my position. I was in a remote room. Remember, it was like a couple doors down, And so I got to hear it very differently. Things like being in the room and what you were experiencing was, in that Moroccan room, it sounded so live. But yeah.
I think that there have a lot of, in our language, in our parliament, is samadhi. Samadhi meaning high concentration, hyper focus. And that's why when you release it, I think that's why the product for us, I don't know about the other, but the product for us is not just simply a product, but it's really your heart, your mind, your soul, your spirit, everything is there.
It's going to be, hopefully, it's going to be something that will inspire others to look deeper into the many layers of meaning behind every single line.
Yeah, I think probably knowing your members will make it priceless because it really captured a lot of your skills there. And the singers and the interpreter, is really into it, and the other people too, the cello, the girls, on the left side of the house, on the right side of the house. So everyone is really into it. And you talk about how exponentially they get into it. It's certain amount, maybe 4 times. But I feel how much spirit they have put into it, how much their souls into that. So I don't see this as just simply a product that we pay and they do it just for payment or money, but I can see a lot more of that with this process. That's what I'm really showing.
And it's much more fun to do something like this when you know that there's a higher purpose for it. The musicians and the singers that you saw in the video, those are people that you probably have all heard before in the movie soundtracks, in TV shows, in commercials. When you hear a singer singing in a TV commercial or in a TV show or a movie that you watch in the theater, you've heard those people before. And for a lot of them, that's just like a day at the office. They show up and they go to work, they sing their lines or they play their parts so that this TV show can go on the air or that this movie can be made or a record album for somebody. And maybe, it's not their favorite thing to do, but it's a rare pleasure when we get together and beautiful music just for the sake of the music and enjoying it to, or conjoining it to the spiritual element there. It's something that we don't get to do every day in our normal lives in the music industry. So that was a special treat.
This is also my worries. When I first talked to him, I asked him if he can introduce to me someone who can do this kind of music. I told him that we have something that we wanted to make it do. And then we continued the conversation because I didn't drop because there's no conditions to do anything that we want to do. But in the back of my mind is this. Can we have someone with really spirit and soul? Something is priceless, something that people don't sell. But can we find someone who do that? So I go back, pray, and then we got this guy on board. And we talked to him, and we said, and he asked me, I said, no, let me talk to Matt. I pray very hard that please let us have someone that can understand us and look through and see through the veil of Buddhism and really bring out the spirit, bring out the soul of this music. And so we don't want it to be a commercial product. We want people to listen, to feel not only the music, the composer, the conductor, but to feel the hope is the gift. The spiritual gift, it does something of commercial value. It's something we offer for free, but that free offering is not about the product, but about the soul's good of this whole team. And I thank all of you who have brought this together.
Thank you so much for your sharing your thoughts and your inspire us.
I just, so I was, how about I should say, skeptical that we can find a professional arranger and conductor and producer in Los Angeles and a Buddhist anthem. And so I really was kind of worried until I started meeting with Brent. And everything that I said, because some of the things that you hear were ideas that I said, well, maybe we can do this in the second verse, maybe we can do this in the fourth verse. And he listened, and I grew more and more confident. This is a really good guy, and this is the guy we want. And then in the last thing, he would call me up like every other day. Ask about this, ask about that. So then by that time I was really confident.
We really want you to say the last words of the audience.
Oh, I don't know. I can sound better than Paul. I just think it was such a pleasure to do this. Yes, and he did contribute so much to the arranging process that there was this back and forth. And yes, I know that the original fear was that can we find somebody to listen, or could you find somebody to listen to what you were saying and don't try and see it? But I told them also in the beginning that I have the experience of playing the music of many people around the world, and it actually just started with the Hispanic music here in Los Angeles, learning how to unlearn what I knew as an American musician and try to hear the music through how these other cultures perceive and enjoy music and perform music, so that I could be that American guy who could play in their band but not sound American. I could sound like I came from their country. So I had that international experience, and through that, I broadened my experience to play with bands from more than 20 countries, traveled all around the world, got to see all the beautiful and diverse cultures. Well, not all, okay, I've been to 80 countries, there are 200, so I still have a ways to go. But I feel like I had a pretty good background there, and I think that international background and also having worked with people from many different religions, all of the world's major religions, which sort of made me flexible and malleable so that I could unlearn what I knew and relearn to really know how does he feel about it, and how did you feel about this, so that we could put this art into, well, what you heard right here. And I thank you very much for being a part of this and coming today, and I hope you will all get a chance to sing along with the song soon.
We are the Bob director. We have it right here because the Compassionate Service Society would like to.
This is token appreciation from the directors of the Compassionate Society.
Would like to present.
Who is who first? Okay.
I wanted to read what is on this certificate. It is a certificate of appreciation, and it says, Compassionate Service Society deeply appreciates Pau Hopp for your contribution as a composer of the music, translator, and versifier of the Avatar verses for the music production of Avatar Hymn of Faith. And now is Brent. She's a little shy, so I'm going to read for you. Okay. So, Compassion Service Society deeply appreciates Brent Fischer for the contribution as a arranger, producer, and conductor of the music production of Avatar Hymn of Faith. Mabel is not shy, but she wants me to read anyway. To Matt Brownlie.
Thank you very much.
Contribution and sound engineering and recording and mixing of the music production of Pakistan.
We stand up our pictures.